I'd like to talk to you for a moment about the film you're going to see. Because to you, as a Vauxhall dealer, the introduction of the new car which it describes is tremendously important. It is no exaggeration to say that 1957 marks the start of a completely new era in Vauxhall's long history in the motor industry. This car, the Vauxhall Victor, is the first product to come from our completely new, completely modern car production factory at Luton. We have designed and equipped this new plant to allow us to produce more cars and better cars than we have ever built before. In designing, developing, and proving the Victor, and in planning the new factory, we have been fortunate in being able to draw on the vast technical resources and know-how of General Motors. I know how good this car is. I believe that the Vauxhall Victor is the best car in its size and price class anywhere in the world. It will certainly bring Vauxhall dealers a bigger share of the passenger car market than they have ever enjoyed before. It gives us all a new and a wonderful business opportunity. I hope you'll like the film. I know you'll like the car.
Salute the Victor, Vauxhall's latest, greatest car. Here is the product of the most up-to-date car production factory in Europe, designed to provide the best value yet in stylish, lively, comfortable, economical motoring. Beauty is a personal thing, but who could resist the appeal of those flowing lines, that taut, clean, eager-to-go look? And the famous silver flutes are still there to identify it as unmistakably a Vauxhall. The styling of this car goes deeper than looks alone. Every line of its shape is governed by practical considerations. It's low, only 58 inches from ground to roof, so that the road holding is first class. Yet it's high enough to provide plenty of headroom inside and ample ground clearance for rough going. And it provides better visibility for driver and passengers than any car of its class. Thanks to the panoramic windscreen that brings the usual corner pillars right back along the sides, forward vision is outstanding, and it's almost as good to the rear. Through that big wrap-round rear window, you can see the road right up to within 13 yards of the tail light. There's 18.5 square feet of glass in the Victor, and it reaches down to 11 inches below the average driver's eye level. Room? See for yourself. It's designed as a four-seater, but those four seats are wide and inviting, and squeezing an extra one in presents no problem at all. Baggage? For a car of its size, the Victor takes a whale of a lot of luggage. Designed that way because a family of four uses a lot of luggage. All this, and still a bit of room to spare. What else is there among the Victor's highlights? Let's have a look at some of them on this deluxe model, the Victor Super. The stylish rear end, with the exhaust pipe on the Super discharging through the bumper. The air intake for the heating and ventilating systems, up above the traffic fumes. Door locks at both sides of the car. The flashing turn indicators way up above the tail lights. A handsome, sensible instrument panel right beneath the driver's eye. A good solid handbrake with a high-speed release. A 5-position main switch. You use the key only to unlock the switch. After that, the switch itself is turned to put on the auxiliary circuits, the main ignition circuit, and to start the engine. Upholstery? Take your pick of 2 different styles, pleated or flat. The Super comes in an exciting range of colors: gypsy red, harvest yellow, horizon blue. And both the Victor and the Super are available in Empress blue, charcoal grey, laurel green, shantung beige, and, of course, black. And now we know something about its looks and comfort, let's see what makes the Victor live up to its name on the road. She's a beauty standing still, but once on the move, she becomes really alive. The engine is the same size as that of the famous Wyvern, 1,507 cc's. But Vauxhall engineers have developed and improved it in a dozen different ways. It has more power, more economy, longer life, and greater smoothness and silence. And the engine is mounted at the front. In fact, as far as the layout of its components goes, the Victor is a strictly conventional car. Vauxhall engineers considered everything and came up with the unshakable conviction that if you want a car with a really high standard of performance and, above all, outstanding value for money, the generally accepted layout is supreme. It puts the principal weight masses as far from the center of gravity as possible, which makes for good road holding. It provides the simplest and least costly drive system, great comfort, and the largest possible space for passengers and luggage. But in every other way, the Victor is strictly non-conventional, as you'll appreciate as soon as you've covered your first half mile. Biggest change to the look of the engine is the deep crankcase, which now extends well below the crankshaft line and results in a tremendously rigid, well-balanced unit, giving greater smoothness and longer life. Brake horsepower is up to 55. Curb weight is down to 1,900 weights. That means, in a nutshell, that the Victor provides really effortless big car performance hand in hand with the sort of miles per gallon previously achieved only on a baby car. On normal runs in England covering 200 or 300 miles, prototypes have done over 40 miles per gallon at an average speed of 35 miles an hour. Now let's take a ride in the Victor and see what all this adds up to. First thing you notice is the big car riding quality. It really sits on the road, this car, and holds its course on any sort of going. Watch the surface of the liquid in that glass. Even on a wavy road, there's hardly a ripple in it. And see how the Victor takes the bends. The engineers explain its beautifully flat ride by saying that the center of gravity is low down close to the roll axis. And they come up with this sort of drawing to explain it. Well, maybe you and I don't appreciate such technicalities. But we do appreciate the way the Victor goes round corners on an even keel. The engineers also say that the reason why the Victor doesn't pitch on a bumpy road is because of its low unsprung weight, its carefully contrived spring frequencies, and effective weight distribution. If, like me, that leaves you cold, don't worry. Be content with the fact that the Victor ride is just about the best in its class in the world. How about acceleration? With that high power to weight ratio, it ought to be quite spectacular. And it certainly is. That forward surge means faster, safer overtaking and cuts down journey times. Top gear performance, too, is out of the ordinary. The Victor's engine develops its maximum torque at only 30 miles an hour in top. So you sail up hills on top gear, or you trickle along in traffic at 10 to 15 miles an hour without ever having to change down. When you do have to stop, the Victor does stop, swiftly and surely. You'll find the Victor holds its course firmly on the straight and is light and sure-footed on bends. And it's free from unexpected vices. Its delightful handling qualities remain the same in all road conditions. How's that for a turning circle? Victor owners are going to save a lot of time and temper in getting in and out of tight parking spots. There's no need to say much about the Victor's gear change. It's even simpler and more effective than the type used on the Wyvern. which earned medals as being just about the best column change in the business. But the Victor has synchromesh on all 3 speeds. It's as simple to change down into first as it is from top to second. Well, I hope that by this time you've gathered that the Victor is no ordinary car. But how do we know it's as good as we make it out to be? This is how we know: by testing. Constant, unremitting testing. Every aspect of the car is metered and gauged so that the engineers know how it will behave, light or loaded, under any type of road condition. Prototypes are tested in a dozen different countries. These cars are handmade. They involve months of careful work. Each successive car embodies the lessons learned from the previous example. Each one gets better than the last. General Motors Proving Ground near Detroit is the largest motor car testing setup in the world. One of the Victors was put through the hoop here at an early stage of development. It went through the whole range of tests. This fifth wheel attachment, for example, gives extremely accurate readings over the whole speed range. You can't fool the experts with a flattering speedometer, and these General Motors test engineers are perhaps the toughest critics of motor cars in the world. 25,000 miles of hard driving on these test roads impressed our American colleagues. Their verdict on the Victor was, she's a beauty. Plenty of wallop and speed, drives like a dream, and can take a lot of punishment. What they called a darn fine car. As for hill climbing, this is General Motors' steepest test hill, 27% gradient. But the Victor, without taking a run at it, sails steadily up. Another Victor spent a few weeks on this sort of punishing test track. In the normal way, if a car covers 2,000 miles of this sort of surface, General Motors engineers are happy. The Victor was still going strong after 5,000 miles. While this was going on in America, other prototypes were leaving Vauxhall's factory in England for extensive duration testing on British roads. This went on, as it still does, day and night. Specific testing began. The engineers' gadgets were fitted. These meters, instruments, and recording gear, together with many others, measured things like acceleration and hard braking. The tests for cooling and brakes were particularly severe. Hour after hour, the Victor was run up and downhill at speed with no pause to cool off. Before long, the engineers began to get the answers to their questions. Soon it became necessary to go further afield. A prototype of the Victor was flown to the continent. One of the objects of this particular sortie was to see how the car behaved over long distances at high speeds. It was quite a hectic trip. Some 1,000 miles across France, then into Switzerland. You just don't find the variety of roads in England which will really test a car. The Victor climbed steadily to over 4,000 feet. Here in the Swiss Alpine passes are many types of road. The crew didn't have much time to admire the mountain scenery. They had to press on. Some thousands of miles were covered in this trip. The Victor was really put through its paces under conditions of fast continental touring. This type of driving really tells you how your car stands up to long ascents. It tells how good steering smooths out the twists and turns of mountain roads, reducing driving fatigue. From time to time, the test crew paused to compare notes and to correlate information. But the pauses were not long. Soon they were on their way again. Climbing. They made this type of trip many times. The road, the corners sharper, the surface rougher. Really up into the mountains now. 5,000 feet and still climbing without a sign of overheating. Higher still. Nearly to 8,000 feet. And now the long descents. This really tests brakes and steering. Now a piece of level road where the speed can build up. The trip provided plenty of information, all interesting, all encouraging. And while all this developing and testing was going on, something else very important was taking place. A brand new 1.5 million square foot factory was going up at Luton to provide completely up-to-date, made-to-measure facilities for the manufacture of the Vauxhall Victor. It's the remarkable efficiency of this new plant, combined with the first-class design of the car itself, that makes the Victor's value for money so outstanding. Now, with the factory ready and the final testing finished, the engineers had proved that the Vauxhall Victor in its final form fulfills all the requirements of the original concept laid down in 1953. That within its size and price class, it should excel in every way. In looks, in performance, in riding comfort, in ruggedness and reliability, in its suitability for world markets. Above all, in value for money. As the first Victors go out onto the roads of the world, the testing program continues. For to the engineers, the first production car is only a landmark on the road to still better motoring and still better value.